It's FYF Sports, man. It's Lamont. We back. Another podcast video. You know, I was just scrolling my timeline, just going through my news and notes. You know, looking at all the most recent sports news. And then this story came across my timeline. I definitely had to report on it. And the main reason I wanted to report on it, just to show how narratives are controlled. Not just by players, but, you know, by everybody involved. So before we dive into this particular topic right here, make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Hit the notification bell to the video if you have not done so already. We are grinding to 20K subscribers, man. We're rounding the year out. 2020 is coming to a close. And, you know, what a year it's been so far. I mean, not just the Last Dance documentary, but I mean, it's been so much. You know, there's been so much to this right here. There's so much to this year, man. We've been losing so many famous athletes, famous people, you know, rappers. It's just been a crazy and up and down year. And, you know, I'm looking forward to 2021. Although 2020 has been great for FYF Sports. I mean, we exploded onto the scene in May, and we really have never really looked back. So we appreciate everybody for, you know, supporting the content, supporting the channel, sharing the videos, engaging in all the content. And as we go into 2021, we're going to look to continue to doing bigger and better things on all platforms. But today we got a video. I wanted to talk about this topic, The Last Dance. When The Last Dance came out, the timing of it was just kind of odd. And I really wanted to speak on this particular issue because it just goes to show how players can control narratives. And when The Last Dance came out, I thought, at least from my perspective, that it did a really good job of going behind the scenes, helping us get an understanding of what the Chicago Bulls were going through as they made that championship run, or all of those championship runs. And the most important player, Michael Jordan, was the main topic. Now, I would have liked to see this get portrayed from a perspective that wasn't so controlled by Michael Jordan. As we all know, he co-produced this. So he had a lot of control with regards to the creativity and the content that either went into the making of this documentary. So he controlled everything. What was included, what wasn't included. And after the release of this, we've seen a flood of players who played with and or against Michael Jordan come out and say that The Last Dance is not an accurate portrayal of the Chicago Bulls and what they actually went through to get to the 6 championships. And we'll go to Scottie Pippen. And the reason why I want to talk about this is because, you know, one of the greatest players of the 90s who played alongside of Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, recently came out this week and said that he went as far as even going to Michael Jordan and telling him he didn't think that the Last Dance was very accurate. And I'm going to give you a few quotes from Scottie Pippen. I'm going to give you a few quotes that he specifically stated. Scottie Pippen, in an interview with The Guardian, he stated, "I don't think it was accurate in terms of really defining what was accomplished in one of the greatest eras of basketball, but also by two of the greatest players. And one could even put that aside and say the greatest team of all time," Pippen said. And again, he's right. In 1996, I consider that team the greatest team of all time. He went on to say, "I didn't think those things stood out in the documentary. I thought it was more about Michael trying to uplift himself to be glorified. The series was co-produced by Jordan's Jump 23 company. I think it also backfired to some degree in that people got a chance to see what kind of personality Michael had." And again, Pippen added that he voiced his criticisms to his former Chicago Bulls teammate, who he said Jordan accepted his opinion. And he basically stated that he told him He wasn't pleased with it. Jordan accepted it, and he said, "Hey, you're right," and that was pretty much it. And that's what that comes directly from Scottie Pippen. In general, Pippen just kind of acknowledged, that he doesn't tend to reflect on the past, which is one of the reasons why he didn't go about helping promote the documentary. And with regards to that aspect of the documentary, he says, I didn't get behind the documentary and try to promote it, talk about any incident that might have happened in the documentary. I didn't feel I needed to bring back things that happened 20 years ago. And when we talk about players who voiced their concerns, I mean, obviously you guys, if you're into sports, you've heard the displeasures from Craig Hodges about how he was kind of, and the Bulls were kind of portrayed. When Michael Jordan played with Craig Hodges, he's a former teammate. We've heard players like Isaiah Thomas. We've heard a lot of former players that played with Michael Jordan. Lonzo Mourning, Charles Oakley come out and in a sense kind of speak against The Last Dance and its portrayal, primarily because it does something that we talk about a lot. When we go live, we dive deep into some of these topics. And it basically, at least as far as from the player's perspective, when you're looking at this, I think they feel that it diminishes them while uplifting Jordan. And we talk about that in our live chats. We talk about how fans will diminish the accomplishments of Scottie Pippen while uplifting Mike. And I think with Scottie Pippen alluded to that to some degree, because they talked a lot about when Pippen was injured and the Bulls couldn't overcome the Pistons, or the time when Jordan retired and when Pippen refused to come into the game because Phil Jackson ran the play for Tony Kukoc. I think in regards to Scottie Pippen, there were a number of things in the documentary that stood out that kind of de-emphasized his impact on that team, but at the same time elevated Jordan. And Pippen has a right to be upset. He's a Hall of Famer. He's an all-time great. He was one of the top 5 players of the 90s. And I think they could have done a little bit more to portray him in a better light. One of the most one of the people that were more vehemently against The Last Dance and how it was portrayed was one of Michael Jordan's teammates, Horace Grant. Now, Horace Grant has a more unique perspective because he won 3 championships with Jordan. Obviously, Jordan retired, but when Jordan came back, Horace Grant was then a part of the Orlando Magic and was a part of that Orlando Magic team that was one of the few teams in the 90s that were able to eliminate a Michael Jordan-led team from the playoffs. So his perspective comes from a very, very different angle. So what I also wanted to do was I wanted to play that full interview with Horace Grant. So everybody, because I know there are a lot of snippets of his conversation. You'll find a snippet here or a snippet there. And these snippets, and what I don't like about those snippets is they are taken out of context. So what I have is the full interview with Horace Grant, speaking on his thoughts of The Last Dance, what led up to it, his involvement in some of these things that Jordan accused him of. And then just, his overall opinion on how accurate The Last Dance was. And again, this, you got to understand, this Last Dance, the timing of it was very peculiar because it came out as LeBron James was celebrating another championship win. So, we have to. We really have to look at it with a side eye. We have to look at it with a side eye. And I don't want to say it came out when LeBron James won another championship, because it didn't come out at that point in time. It actually had came out before then. LeBron James released another documentary. Michael Jordan released another documentary when LeBron James actually won the championship. But the timing of The Last Dance was just very peculiar because it looked as if it was aimed towards making sure that we don't forget how great Michael Jordan was amidst the time where everybody's eyes are on LeBron James as he's going into year 17. It doesn't look like he's dropped off or waned at all, and he's primed to maybe play another 3, 4, 5 years, being at the top of the NBA. But we're going to go ahead and get to this interview with Horace Grant. I just wanted to play the whole interview for you guys so you guys can really get a better understanding of how accurate The Last Dance actually was, and should we look at this documentary as one of the greatest documentaries of all time, as some have pegged it to be, or is this a major move by Michael Jordan to control the narrative, to keep his name relevant? You know, when we talk about guys like Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain, who were booted off Mount Rushmore or booted off that number one spot as the GOAT, because we kind of just forgot about their greatness. Is this a narrative controlling move by Michael Jordan to make sure he stays in the minds of all sports fans, to make sure he stays atop in that GOAT conversation? But we're going to get to that. We're going to get to that interview, and then we're going to chime back in after the interview. Make sure as this interview plays and during this live premiere that you're commenting down below. I really want your guys' thoughts and opinions on this, because whenever we drop a podcast video on something like this, we always follow it up and talk about it in our live stream. I really want to hear what you guys have to say about it. Make sure you put your thoughts, questions, and comments in the live stream, and you know, the live panel and myself will do our best to try to get to those questions when we go live about this topic. But up now we have an interview between Horace Grant, and he's talking on Chicago Talk Radio about The Last Dance.
The 10 episodes have aired, and I had a chance to talk to you and Harp and Bill Cartwright and Craig Hodges and so many others that we've talked to. Do you look back on it and did you enjoy it? Did you feel like, it was okay? How would you answer that?
I would say, entertaining, but, we know who was there as teammates, that about 90% of it was, I don't know if I can say it on air, but BS.
Right.
In terms of the realness of it, as I stated the other day, that it wasn't real, because a lot of things that he said to some of his teammates, that his teammates went back at him, but all of that was kind of edited out of the documentary, if you want to call it a documentary.
Yeah, it was funny. Ron Harper said to you and I, hey, man, he called me one of those names, and I went right back at him, and I know it's on tape, and they never showed it. He only picked on 3 guys that he felt he could dominate. Is that a fair way to look at it?
Well, absolutely. I mean, he felt that he could dominate me, but that was sadly mistaken, because, whenever he went at me, I went at him right back. That was. But in terms of Will Perdue, Steve Kerr, and the young man Scott Burrell, I mean, that was heartbreaking. To see a guy, a leader, to go at those guys like that. I understand in terms of practicing. You get, you have a push and shove there, here and there, but outright punching and things of that nature, and calling them the B's and the H's, that wasn't called for.
So when you go back to draft night 1987, and the story goes, and I was scouting in the league then, that Jerry Krause is in love with Joe Wolf. Doug Collins is in love with Horace Grant, and most of Jerry's scouts, if not all, wanted Horace Grant. And take us to that moment, because the Bulls are on the clock. You don't know where they're going, and you're sitting there going, am I going to Chicago, or are they taking Joe Wolf?
I mean, it was one of the most nervous but most exciting nights of my life, sitting there not knowing where you're going to go. My agent at the time was like, I think Chicago might draft you. I'm like, okay, cool. Saying that, I heard later in my career that it came down to the last minute of the Bulls being on the clock because Jerry Krause was so in love with Joe Wolf. Joe was a very, very good college player coming out of North Carolina. A lot of history there, and Doug Collins, Johnny Bach, and everybody in that room said, "Look, man, we want Horace Grant," but of course Jerry Krause had other ideas. So Mr. Reinsdorf, Jerry Reinsdorf, called Krause outside, and this is the story that was told to me, that he said, "Look, everybody in that room wants Horace Grant. If you make the decision with Joe Wolf, you're going to have to live with it." And I think that he was telling him, I'm not going to put words into into Jerry Reinsdorf's mouth, but I'm pretty sure he was saying, you do this deal, it doesn't work out, then I think your buddy's going to be alive. And I say to this day, Jerry Krause was the GM, but Jerry Reinsdorf drafted me that night.
So
along with Doug Collins and Johnny Bach and the rest of the people in that room.
So when did you know you're there? It's you, it's Scottie. You're both skinny. Now they hire Al Vermeil. That was like Jerry's second hire, Krause. And I saw you at the multiplex at Deerfield working out and getting bigger. And you and Scottie all of a sudden are getting stronger. When did you know we can win championships? This team is ready to take the next step.
Well, I think after Detroit kept beating our heads in every year, even though we got stronger physically, but we weren't there mentally as a team. I think after that seventh game, we took them to 7 games, and I think John Paxson was hurt that 7 game, and of course Pip had the migraines. I think after that game, even though we lost that series, we felt that we were going to be more mature the following year to get over that hump. After we beat Detroit and we won our first one, man, I guess you can say the rest is history.
Yeah, no question. So I've got to ask you, I asked you this yesterday. I want to give you this forum to answer it. Michael says, oh, yeah, Horace was the leak. He's the one that went to Sam Smith and gave him all that stuff for the Jordan rules. The floor is yours. How do you respond to that?
Cap, as I stated to everybody, that is a downright, outright, completely lie. Lie. And as I stated, if MJ had a grudge with me, let's settle it like, man, let's talk about it, or we can settle it another way. But yet and still, he goes out and put this lie out that I was the source behind it. Sam and I have always been great friends. We're still great friends. But the sanctity of that locker room, I would never put anything personal out there. The mere fact that Sam Smith was an investigative reporter, that he had to have 2 sources, to write a book, I guess. Why would MJ just point me out? Okay?
Right.
It's only a grudge, man. I'm telling you, it was only a grudge. And I think he proved that during this so-called documentary, when if you say something about him, he's going to cut you off. He's going to try to destroy your character. I mean, Charles Barkley, they've been friends for over 20, 30 years, and he said something about Michael's management with the Charlotte Bobcats or the Charlotte Hornets. And then they haven't spoken since then. And my point is that he said I was a snitch, but yet and still after 30 or 35 years, he brings up his rookie year going into one of his former teammates' room, and seeing coke and weed and women. My point is, why in the hell did he want to bring that up? What's that got to do with anything? I mean, if you want to call somebody a snitch, that's a damn snitch right there.
So, and we're talking with the great Horace Grant here on ESPN 1000 on Cap and Company. There's also a story, it was in USA Today, I mean, it's been everywhere, where it said, yeah, if Horace didn't play well, Michael would tell the flight attendant not to give him his dinner. Again, I give you the floor.
Cap, come on. I mean, anybody knows me as a rookie that if anybody, comes up and try to snatch my food away, I'm going to do my best to beat their ass. And believe me, back then I could have took MJ in a heartbeat. Yes, it's true that he told the flight attendant, well, don't give him anything because he played like crap. And I went right back at it. I said some choice words that I won't repeat on here, but I said some choice words and stood up. If you want it, you come and get it. And of course, he didn't move. He was just barking. But that was the story. But anybody knows me, where I come from and what I stand for. Come on, man. There's nobody in this earth will ever come and try to take food off my plate and not get their rear end beaten.
You were very, very close to Johnny Bach. And Johnny, before he passed, he and I used to go to lunch, and he would tell me, you asked Horace Grant about what it was like being part of what we called the Dobermans and using military terms, X-ray and yoke for defense. What do you remember about that commitment to defense by that team?
Cap, man, it was one of the most exciting defensive teams I ever played on in terms of us being athletic and trusting each other out there as teammates. I knew that MJ or Pip, and they gambled all the time in terms of going for steals and things of that nature. And they knew if their guy got past them, I would be there to get their backs. And they knew that. And I'm pretty sure that was one of the reasons why they were so great on the defensive end. And I knew if I had their backs and something happened that my man or their man got past me, I knew I had Bill Cartwright back there to knock somebody down who came into that lane. So it was all a great team defensive moments.
When was the last time you spoke to Michael? And if you saw him, would you have a conversation with him, or I'm past that?
Gosh, I talked to MJ. We text about 3 years ago. About 3 years ago, we were talking about golf, and the crazy thing, Cap, is that for one of my charities, he sent me an autographed pair of shoes. I don't understand it. If he had some difference with me, he could have texted me, he could have called me, the whole 9 yards. But if I see him today, we will hopefully pay our respects to each other because we went through 3 championships together. But if not, believe me, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it.
Do you think when Scottie left, do you think he would have stayed after 98 if the Bulls wanted him to, if they had decided to keep that thing together?
Listen, there's no way that Pip would have stayed there another year, not because he didn't love the Bulls, but because of the contract. I think if MJ had deferred some of that money, maybe Pip would have stayed there. But Pip had the back injury, the foot injury, things of that nature. He wanted to secure his the financial future, and I'm pretty sure, I'm 99.99999% that Pip would have gone other places.
Did you feel Scottie was portrayed unfairly in the documentary?
I have never seen quote unquote a number 2 guy as decorated as Scottie Pippen portrayed so badly in terms of the migraine, in terms of the 1.6 or 7 second selfish. I have never seen this in all of my life. In the respect of Pip was out there, I think in game 6, could barely walk, getting knocked down on his back, trying to do whatever he could to help that team. And my point is, why was that 1.6 or 7 seconds in the documentary, so-called documentary, about Pip? I mean, MJ wasn't even on the team.
Right.
Why was that in there? I mean, that we handled that year very well as a team. Pip knows that he was wrong for doing it, but yet and still, we went after the game. Bill stood up, said we had to say, Bill Cartwright, and then we handled it. It was over. It was over. We go on to take the Knicks to 7 games. So, I mean, it was over. Why bring that up? That's my question to everybody out there who's listening.
It's a very valid question. Bill Cartwright said to you and I yesterday when we were doing that thing for Bet Online, and Bill said, yeah, our leader left and walked out on us to go play baseball. Did some guys resent it? Because it certainly sounded like Bill did, and Bill's as classy a guy as there is.
Well, I didn't pay attention to it, to be honest. It was his decision to go play baseball. Go play baseball. I mean, I didn't give a damn. It opened the doors up for everybody who remained on that team to step forward, to show the world, to show ourselves and the fans of Chicago what we are made of in terms of not just being the Jordanaires. And Scottie Pippen led us that year. He was in the MVP voting. I mean, he had just a terrific season. That was my first and only, and I think B.J. Armstrong, first and only NBA All-Star team that year. We won 55 games that year without the great number 23.
Hey, as I let you go, you said, and I laughed, you said it's a so-called documentary. Why do you say that?
When that so-called documentary is about one person, basically, and he has the last word on what's going to be put out there. What's going to be put out there? It's not a documentary. It's his narrative of what happened in the last quote-unquote dance. That's not a documentary, because a whole bunch of things was cut out, edited out. So that's why I call it a so-called documentary.
I mean, there we have it right there. Horace Grant, man, a very in-depth take on his thoughts about Michael Jordan and The Last Dance, his thoughts on the accuracy of it, his thoughts on the depiction on how Scottie Pippen was portrayed. I think that just exposes a lot. And you know, when you have a sports channel like FYF Sports, where people come in and debate, a lot of Horace Grant sentiments come out from fans in these debates. A lot of the things that they say to boost Michael Jordan were representative of how The Last Dance was portrayed. The Last Dance was a documentary crafted in a way to portray Michael Jordan to be way up here, while everyone else who would normally be slightly below him, they're way down here. And everything that they did was diminished. I think, you know, when I look at that Chicago Bulls team on both runs, you know, I can name very, very integral pieces of all of those teams. You know, when we talk about the Scott Williamses and the Stacey Kings and the John Paxsons, and you know, these are the guys that get little to no credit, that were, you know, never really brought up in the documentary whatsoever. And you know, we heard a lot of things. Again, we basically heard a lot of the things that elevated Michael Jordan, even going as far as to talk about a story with regards to how Michael Jordan went and had to go get Dennis Rodman after he went on his party binge in Vegas. You know, I think these are stories craftily inserted to help elevate Jordan to some degree with regards to his, you know, how great he was of a player on and off the court. Which, again, I don't want to take nothing away from Jordan. I have my own reasons for why I think he's labeled as the GOAT. I just don't think we have to go about disparaging or trying to diminish other players that he played with or against in an effort to boost Michael Jordan himself. So, but you guys, let me know what you think about this video. Let me know what you think about The Last Dance. I mean, The Last Dance was released months ago, and we still have news reports coming out on it. So obviously, The Last Dance did carry some weight. It meant a lot to these players, especially to any player not named Michael Jordan. So again, I want you guys to let me know what you think about this. How do you feel about Scottie Pippen? I mean, we know Scottie Pippen's been in the news as of late with all of the stories surrounding him and his wife, Larsa Pippen. I mean, his name is not getting tossed around in any positive light right now. And I think even that particular issue, his home, his family issue, I think that's getting carried over and brought into this basketball conversation as well, because then you have a lot of people saying, oh, that's the type of player he was. Doesn't surprise me that this is going on in his personal life. So again, it just opens the door for people to just throw more and more shots at a guy like Scottie Pippen when he honestly is in a situation that a lot of NBA players have been in. They just didn't have the limelight that comes with being a Scottie Pippen. So again, you guys, let me know in the comments what you think. Make sure you prepare your thoughts, comments, and questions about this particular topic. When this video drops, we will be going live. We will be discussing this particular issue in the live chat, and I would love to hear from you guys about this particular story, and not just about this particular issue, but I want to know, you know, what do you think about narratives in the NBA? How narratives are controlled by players, agents, GMs, ownership, and how it can affect the game if these narratives are successfully executed by any one of those aforementioned people that have the power to do so. Hey, but it's FYF Sports, man. It's been another great podcast video. Again, we're on the grind to 20K subscribers. So make sure you guys like, comment, and subscribe. Hit that notification bell. I mean, again, we're going to be rounding out the year. We're going to be ending the year 2020 strong. We're going to be dropping lots of videos, going live a lot. We got to prepare for our Christmas Day live. We got to prepare for our New Year's Day live. And then, you know, what's so crazy is the NBA season is about to start again. The NBA season is about to start again. The Detroit Pistons are back in the news with not just a great draft, but, you know, signing LiAngelo Ball. We got to talk about that. We got to talk about Warriors. How is this roster going to look? LaMelo Ball's first game. Man, we got so much to talk about NBA related. And then that's not even to mention, we still got to talk about the NFL, how the season's rounding out, who's going to be the winner of that horrible division with the Giants and the Cowboys and those teams. Like, I mean, we got so much to cover with FYF Sports. That's all the more reasons for you guys to subscribe, hit the notification bell to make sure you're a part of all of those live streams when we go live. But other than that, man, it's been FYF Sports, man. It's been a great podcast video. Yeah, we out.